Welcome my dear listeners, stay with me to get the spoilers first. And subscribe to the channel. Let's find out what's going to happen on The Young and the Restless. Victor's cruel plan for revenge is to rebuild Jordan's cage for Matt under the Newman Ranch. Victor Newman has never been the kind of person to let an enemy go without punishment, but this time his anger is at a level that Genoa City hasn't seen in a long time. The latest Young and the Restless spoiler buzz says that Victor is putting his fight with Jack Abbott on hold so he can focus on a target who, in his mind, really deserves the worst kind of payback. And that person is Matt Clark. Not a business competitor. Not a bother for the family. He is not a man who will listen to threats or legal pressure. Victor thinks that Matt is the kind of enemy who should be put in a cage. And not just any old cage. People say that Victor is rebuilding the famous cage that was once used for Jordan Howard under the new Newman Ranch house. This time though, the cage is for Matt Clark. That one detail alone sends a chill through the story for people who have been watching for a long time. Victor's willingness to cross lines when his family was in danger was shown in Jordan's cage, which was one of the darkest symbols of that. Now, in a twist that feels both brutal and typical for this show, Victor may be getting ready to bring that same nightmare back to life for a different monster. If the plan works, Matt won't just be caught. He will have to live in a trap made of Victor's anger, memory, and need for revenge. This is what makes this spoiler so good. This is not something Victor is doing on a whim. He isn't just yelling in public or giving orders from his office. This is colder, more planned, and much more scary. It seems that he is changing his focus from Jack Abbott to the man who has hurt Victor in a way that he thinks is unforgivable. Matt Clark has already shown that he knows how to destroy lives from the shadows. He has already hurt, threatened, and tortured the people Victor cares about. That makes Matt the perfect person for the kind of punishment that no court could ever give him. The fact that Victor is fixing Jordan's cage says a lot about how deeply the Newman family's trauma is still affecting them. That cage was never just a building. It stood for what happens when Victor thinks that normal justice is too slow, weak, or unclear. The original cage was buried, both physically and emotionally, but the fact that it can be brought back to life shows that Victor has never really let go of the way he thought when he made it. He may have moved on from Jordan, but the urge to lock up a threat instead of just beating it is still there, waiting for the right enemy to wake it up again. And Matt Clark is the kind of enemy who could wake it up. Matt has been stalking the Newmans like a vulture, using lies, manipulation, and mind games to keep everyone on edge. Victor can't get rid of him with a business deal or a warning call because he is not the kind of bad guy he can ignore. Matt is a person. Matt is a predator. Matt is the kind of guy who uses fear as a weapon and finds other people's pain funny. That's what makes him so dangerous, and it's also why Victor's plan for revenge makes some sense. Victor may have a long-standing family hatred for Jack, but Matt is in a whole new category. Victor thinks that Matt is the man who needs to be stopped. This is where the story gets really dark, because putting Jordan's cage back together isn't just a threat. It's a physical return to old ways. It means that Victor is willing to bring up one of the worst times in his family's past to make a point to Matt. It means he is going to take the same path he took when Jordan cornered him, but this time he is ready to use that cruelty on someone else. That shows how angry Victor is, but it also shows how far he is willing to go when he thinks someone has done something to make him angry. The cruel brilliance of the plan is that Victor probably thinks it's fair. Matt is not just another tough opponent to him. He is a corrupting force who has already put the Newmans in danger, taken advantage of their weaknesses, and turned people into pawns. Victor can control the danger on his own terms if he can trap Matt under the ranch like he did Jordan. He can watch and wait until Matt feels the fear that Victor thinks his family has had to live with. Yes, this is revenge, but it's also how Victor thinks he can protect himself. That doesn't make it any less sadistic, of course. That's what makes it so interesting, in fact. Victor never thinks of himself as the bad guy in these situations. He thinks of himself as the last line of defense. Victor thinks he has every right to bury Matt where he can't hurt anyone else if he is willing to ruin lives from the outside. That way of thinking is what makes the story go from a simple revenge tease to something darker. Victor does not want to fight. He is planning to take people hostage. He is going to take away Matt's freedom and make him live in the very thing that Victor thinks he deserves. And since this is The Young and the Restless, the emotional fallout is already part of the story. If family members knew what Victor was making, they would probably act differently. Some people would call it horrible. Some people would quietly agree that Matt has gone too far and may finally be meeting the wrong kind of man. Some people would still be worried about what would happen if Victor completely changed back into the person who used to keep Jordan in chains. That part is important because it shows how Victor's revenge always hurts him as well. He might have a good reason to be angry, but the way he handles things could quickly make the family doubt him. The funny thing is that Victor is able to plan this because Jack isn't in the middle of the biggest fire for once. That in and of itself is interesting. Victor and Jack have been in a cycle of hate, grudges and power plays for decades, but Matt makes Victor think bigger. Jack is a pain in the neck for Victor. Matt is a danger to the family's safety. The spoiler says that Victor takes his mind off revenge on Jack Abbott long enough to focus on someone who really deserves it because of this difference. The way it's worded is almost like praise in a twisted way. Victor has other enemies, but this one deserves a punishment that only he could think of. That's why the new Newman Ranch house is the perfect place for this punishment. A ranch house is meant to stand for safety, family roots and tradition. But if Victor is really putting Jordan's cage back together under the house, then the house itself is a lie. The family lives above a secret room of violence, and the house is a metaphor for the Newmans. Shiny on the outside but cruel on the inside. That picture is straight out of a soap opera. It makes the ranch into a fortress, a prison and a crime scene all at once. There is a lot of potential for storytelling. Matt being held at the Newman Ranch would cause immediate tension, not just because he was physically trapped, but also because of the emotional meaning behind it. Victor would be turning his house into a war room. He would be saying that the Newman family doesn't just survive threats, puts them in the ground, keeps them locked up. It punishes them at the very core of its power. That is a scary thought because it fits Victor's personality so well that viewers can almost hear him justifying it before he even says anything. There are many ways that Matt could get into trouble if he ends up in that cage. Victor could finally make Matt look him in the eye and explain everything he has done. He could use the cage to punish a man who thought he was untouchable, get information, confessions, or even panic from him. Victor would also be able to control how fast the revenge happened with the cage. He wouldn't be chasing Matt around the city anymore. He would be waiting above him, deciding when to come down and when to let the fear do the work. But the plan also has a lot of risks. When Victor gets angry, he's not very subtle, which makes the idea of him physically rebuilding a cage even more dangerous. The more careful he is, the more likely it is that someone else will see what he's doing. And as soon as this plan gets out, it could lead to the kind of backlash that Victor hates the most. Accusations, family fights, and the chance that Matt could somehow turn the trap back around on him. In the world of soap operas, the bad guy who gets locked up usually has one last trick up his sleeve. Victor knows that, which is likely why his planning seems so carefully planned. We also need to think about how this plan will affect Victor. It is not just revenge to rebuild Jordan's cage. It is going back. It means going back to a part of himself that likes to be in charge, scared and contained. He may think he needs to do that, but it also makes it possible that he is getting stuck in his own ways. It's easy to forget that Victor's strategies come with a price because he has been so sure he can outsmart anyone for so long. The price here isn't just moral. It's emotional. He runs the risk of becoming so obsessed with revenge that he starts to look like the monsters he says he hates. That is what makes this spoiler so powerful. Victor revives one of the darkest tools he ever used. Is not just Victor goes after Matt. It means that the audience is being asked to remember the Jordan story, how scary that cage was, and that Victor is now willing to go back into that same darkness if it means trapping Matt. The fact that he is doing it under the new Newman Ranch house makes it even more scary because it turns the family's newest symbol of power into a place of hidden horror. And if anyone is wondering if Victor is overreacting, the answer is probably no. Not in Victor's head. He has seen enough, lost enough, and dealt with enough threats to know that Matt is the kind of enemy that can't be dealt with calmly. That's why the plan for revenge seems so real. This is not a random twist in a soap opera. It is a very Victor Newman solution. He sees the problem, knows what the threat is, and builds a prison under his own house to deal with it. The question now is if the plan will work. Will Matt end up in jail? Will the family find out what Victor is making before it's too late? Will someone stop Victor before he goes too far? Or will this be another case of Victor doing what he thinks is right, only to deal with the consequences when the rest of the family finds out how far he went? The whole point is that you don't know what will happen. The revenge plan is already scary enough to scare the audience, but the real soap opera will happen after that. If Victor does this, he won't just be punishing Matt. He will open a new chapter in the Newmans' long history of hidden violence, emotional damage and excuses that don't make sense. And because this is the young and the restless, that kind of revenge doesn't stay hidden for long. So, yes, it looks like Victor is putting Jack on hold to deal with someone much more dangerous. People say that he is rebuilding Jordan's cage under the Newman Ranch. And yes, he wants to catch Matt Clark in it. But the real story is bigger than the revenge. It has to do with the part of Victor that still thinks the only way to beat monsters is to build a prison for them and lock the door from the outside. That's not just a plan in Genoa City. It is a sign. And if Victor does what he says he will do, Matt may find out that the Newman family's power isn't the most dangerous thing about them. It's that they are willing to use it without mercy when they think someone needs to go away. Victor's plan for sadistic revenge is to rebuild Jordan's cage for Matt under the Newman Ranch. Matt Clark has been making the Newman family scared for years. And the past is important because this isn't a new problem that started last week in Las Vegas. Matt has been a problem for Sharon and Nick since high school, when he dated Sharon and then got into a bitter fight with Nick that turned into something much worse. Over the years he has come back under different names like Carter Mills and Mitch Bacall. He has already been to jail once, but he came back and caused more trouble. In the current story he is back in Las Vegas sending threatening texts, controlling the Newmans and using Nick's drug problem and Noah's accident as new weapons. That's why Victor Newman's answer seems so explosive. Victor has been trying to beat his enemies for decades with money, power and fear, but Matt is the kind of person who makes Victor stop thinking of a problem as a business problem and start thinking of it as a disease. Rumor has it that Victor is taking his attention away from Jack Abbott for a short time to go after the one enemy he thinks really deserves punishment. And since this is Victor, the punishment won't be just a symbol. It will be physical, private and very personal. In this version of the story, Victor decides that Matt has caused the Newmans too much trouble for too long. That trouble started when Matt first started hanging out with Sharon and Nick in high school, and it hasn't really stopped since then. Nick and Sharon have been through Matt's tricks before, but this time it's worse because Matt is now working behind the scenes with a new name, an old grudge and a cruelty that never goes away. Victor has seen him trick the family, send threats and almost kill Nick and Noah. He is done waiting for the police, the courts and Matt to get tired. Las Vegas is, of course, the trigger. Matt's current campaign has already gone too far. Spoiler coverage shows that he used stolen phones, a bad batch of drugs and hidden cameras to trap Nick, Sharon and Noah in a nightmare. After taking the bad drugs, Nick passes out on the floor. Adam rushes to help him, and Matt sits in his car and watches the video like it's a private screening. The same preview says that Matt is happy about Nick's pain and calls him the little rich boy Newman, who finally got the bad batch. That mean behavior gives Victor the perfect reason to stop seeing Matt as a bother and start seeing him as a target. The story gets even darker because Victor has already seen what Matt can do when no one is watching. Earlier spoiler coverage said that Matt had been close to going after Nick and that he had already been making trouble for the Newmans after getting out of jail. After he got away, he started sending threatening texts and setting traps again. He isn't hiding in a corner and hoping no one will find him. He is actively pushing, taunting and daring the Newmans to come after him. That's the kind of enemy Victor hates the most because it means Matt can't be bribed, talked down to or shamed into silence. So Victor makes a decision that is very Victor. Rumor has it that he starts a secret project under the new Newman Ranch house. This project is basically a rebuilt version of Jordan Howard's cage. The idea is not very clear. It is against the law. It isn't nice. Victor Newman would only think of this kind of solution when he thinks that justice has failed and his family is in danger. The earlier Jordan story showed that Victor is willing to go down a dark, hidden path when he thinks the threat is life-threatening. Looks like he's going to use that method again for Matt, but this time the cage is supposed to be stronger, safer, and much harder to get out of. That part about the new Newman Ranch house is what makes the plan seem so wrong. This is not a temporary holding cell in a basement or warehouse. It is a part of the Newman family's house, hidden under the new foundation like a secret wound. The meaning is crystal clear. Victor is literally putting punishment into the family estate. The ranch above is meant to be a sign of power, legacy, and safety, but below it he is making a place for revenge and keeping people there. The house hides the anger that is underneath it. And Victor has reasons in his own mind to believe this is okay. Matt has not only threatened the family, but he has also gone after the weakest members of the family. Matt's operation has almost killed Noah already, thanks to the wreck in Las Vegas and all the trouble that followed. Nick's body is also breaking down because of the bad drugs Matt helped start. Victor sees that and takes it as a sign that war is coming. Victor thinks that the best way to stop Matt from using poison and Rex to break up the Newmans is to keep him locked up where he can't play predator. That's where the cruel part of Victor's revenge comes in. He is not only trying to stop Matt. He is trying to show Matt how mean he is. Matt has made the Newmans feel trapped, watched and helpless for years. Victor wants to change the way things are. He wants Matt to be the one who can't leave, the one who hears footsteps above him, the one who waits for the next insult, the next question, the next reminder that he no longer controls the room. Victor's idea of revenge isn't just losing. It is helplessness that is forced. That does put Victor in a very dangerous place, of course. The whole Jordan Cage history shows how easily Victor can justify going too far when it comes to family. Earlier this year, soap coverage even asked if Victor had built the cage under the new mansion, which shows that the fans already had an idea of where this could go. The target is now Matt Clark, a man with a long history of violence and manipulation that makes Victor believe the cage is protection and not cruelty. But the audience knows that Victor is only one bad choice away from becoming what he says he is against once he starts building hidden prisons under his house. The real emotional engine here is that Victor isn't just doing things for no reason. He is responding to a pattern. Matt first went after Sharon and Nick when they were teenagers, and the scars from that time still matter because they changed how those characters see danger. Matt's long history with Sharon and Nick has always been one of the ugliest parts of The Young and the Restless. He beat Nick, raped Sharon, lied about Nick shooting him and then came back years later with a different name and face. Matt is the kind of guy who could bring out the worst in Victor. That is why Victor's project seems so real in soap terms. He isn't building the cage out of boredom. He is making it because he thinks he is finally fighting an enemy who doesn't deserve any mercy. Matt's return from jail, sending threatening texts to the Newmans, and almost killing Nick and Noah all at the same time give Victor the perfect reason. He can tell himself that he is not being cruel. He is working quickly. He is doing what the law can't do. He is stopping Matt from hurting anyone else. Victor tells himself that story even though the audience knows how far that logic can go. The only problem is that Victor's methods always have consequences. Someone has to build the cage, hide it, and keep it hidden if it exists. That means Victor is not only trying to get back at someone, he is also making a secret that could destroy the Newman family if it gets out. In Genoa City, a hidden prison under the ranch isn't something that stays quiet for long. If anyone finds out that Victor is once again choosing captivity over justice, it could tear the family apart, scare the people he loves, and bring on a whole new set of problems. It also makes for an interesting contrast with how Matt works. Matt loves it when things are chaotic, people pretend to be someone else, and people are mean behind closed doors. Victor loves to have power, keep secrets, and get back at people. Matt destroys lives from the outside, but Victor protects his family by turning the inside of his own house into a weapon. One man uses lies to get through cracks while the other uses power to close them. That's why this fight feels so risky. Neither man wants to hold back. They both think they are the only ones strong enough to make the next decision. And Matt is still hurting people, which makes Victor's timing seem like it was meant to be. Nick is still dealing with the drug crisis, Sharon and Noah are still stuck in the fallout from Vegas, and Adam is still trying to keep everyone alive while Matt watches from a distance. The villain's current revenge has already caused the Newmans a lot of pain, which is why Victor wants to go nuclear. The only question now is whether the cage is the last thing Victor does, or the start of a new disaster that he won't be able to handle once it is built. The story is so interesting because it's not really about whether Matt should be punished. He probably does, at least by soap standards. It's about whether Victor can keep himself from being consumed by the need to punish him. Every part of the plan, the hidden construction, the legacy of Jordan's cage, the anger at Matt's crimes, and the desire to throw Matt's cruelty back in his face, shows that the man is becoming more and more like the enemy he hates. When revenge turns into architecture, that's the risk. The walls can keep the family safe, but they can also trap the man who built them. So the spoiler story is this. Matt has been fighting the Newmans for years, from high school rivalries to fake identities to the destruction in Las Vegas that is happening right now. Finally pushed to the limit, Victor decides that the only real answer is to bring back one of the darkest tools he has ever used, Jordan Howard's cage. He will turn it into Matt's prison under the new Newman ranch. Yes, it's a plan for revenge, but it's also a warning that the Newmans are done pretending they can afford to be nice. And if Victor goes through with it, Matt might finally find out what it's like to be hunted by a man who thinks that waiting in the dark underground to find out how far revenge can go is worse than losing. And this is where the story stops being about justice and starts becoming something much harder to defend. Because when a man like Victor Newman builds a cage, he's not just trying to stop a monster. He's deciding he gets to become the judge, the jailer, and maybe something worse. And that shift changes everything, quietly, but permanently. The truth is, Matt Clark has pushed every limit. But Victor choosing to bury revenge under his own home feels like crossing a line you can't uncross. Because once punishment becomes personal, it never really ends. It just grows. What makes this chilling is not the cage itself. It's the mindset behind it. Victor doesn't want Matt gone. He wants him aware, trapped, powerless, feeling every second of it. And that says more about Victor's state of mind than any threat Matt ever made. And here's my honest take. This doesn't protect the family. It risks breaking it from the inside. Because secrets like that don't stay buried, especially not in Genoa City. And when they come out, they don't just expose the villain. They expose the man who built the cage. So now the real tension isn't just, will Victor catch Matt? It's, what happens to Victor if he does? Will Nick Newman and Sharon Newman even recognize the man who claims he's doing this for them? Or will they be the ones begging him to stop before he goes too far? And here's the twist I can't shake. What if Matt never even ends up in that cage? What if the real fallout is the family discovering it exists? Because that's the kind of secret that doesn't just explode. It reshapes loyalties, trust, everything. So the question isn't just who wins this war. It's what's left of the man who refuses to lose it? And if you're watching closely, you might start to wonder, was this ever about stopping Matt? Or has it already become something much darker?